for racking up that big travel bill.
Joining us now this morning, political analyst Wendy Patrick, Laura Fink join us with This Week in Politics. Ladies, good morning and thank you for being here.
Good morning, Shelley.
Okay, he's trying to make things better and says, I'm going to sign a check and I'm going to pay the taxpayers back for that. Is that going to make this go away? Wendy?
I would say no, and we know that because he's already offered to pay back the cost of his seat, which is a small fraction of the bill. And you can imagine Tom Price right now. I mean, obviously the price is not right when it comes to the fact that he took those expensive flights, haha. However, I'll make the counter argument just for fun. If you're Tom Price, you're probably going to say something to the effect of, but wait a minute, all of this was approved. I had communications that were confidential I had to do during those flights. That's one of the things that's been put forth. This was necessary to some extent. And even if it was unnecessary, even if there were some of those flights where a commercial option would have been feasible and available, he's going to say, I was authorized to do this. Why shouldn't the government pay back the bill? That's not going to go over very well. I'm just saying that is one of the arguments I haven't heard put forth just yet.
And Laura, the president said he's not too happy about this either.
Well, we should be on resignation watch, not just because President Trump is upset about it, because the violations were so flagrant. In fact, he took $400,000 of taxpayer money. He's offering to pay back $50K. So I guess he's paying for his seat, and you and I are paying for the rest of the plane. And not only that, he flew all over the world, $500,000 on military flights in addition to that. And he took his wife along, you know, to all over the world on various transports. That's $25,000 an hour is the cost of a military jet. Wow. And, you know, and he wasn't just flying internationally. He was flying to go see his son to his vacation homes. I mean, this was, in fact, flagrant. And this excuse for an apology is just really laughable. I think the clock is ticking. One thing he has in his favor, though, he is under investigation by the New York Attorney General, because while he was in Congress, and in fact, when he was being confirmed, he was under a cloud of scandal because he passed legislation that benefited particular medical companies that he went and then made a profit off of in the short term, banking on and making plenty of ducats to pay back this tax bill. So he is under significant investigations and problems, and I think it's only a matter of time before we see his letter.
And Raul, I think this is just the beginning, because remember, this is shades of Steve Mnuchin. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Plus, the fact that there are so many cabinet officials, at least a handful thus far, who are also, I don't want to say under investigation, but let's just say they've got a plane problem in the eyes of the general public, and they're being looked at. Now, they may also step forward and say, okay, I'm going to pay for my I'm going to pay for my flight too, because reputation is priceless. And you gotta imagine there are a lot of other people who had their reputations at stake that are going to be worried that their travel is going to be scrutinized. In other words, if we're going to make an example of Tom Price, why not go and make sure that everyone who's traveling on the government dime is not doing it at taxpayer expense?
I'm shocked that with the administration under a microscope, since they have been since the beginning, how they would still think that this would go, no pun intended, to fly under the radar.
Well, Raul, I'm shocked that you're shocked, because in fact,
I'm still shocked by everything.
There is so much scandal within this administration, and such flagrant disregard for the norms of everyday Americans. I mean, this really is a bunch of rich guys coming in, and instead of paying the bills on the corporate dime, now they're moving them over to the taxpayer. And they may not see anything wrong with that, but the American people really do.
Let's talk a little bit about the taxes, because he announced his tax plan earlier this week, and I'm curious to see what both you ladies think about. I think I know, but we'll ask you. Wendy, we'll start with you.
I think that there'd be a much better chance if some of the provisions in these tax plans were passed a la carte. In other words, there's just too much of an opportunity for those that disagree to find some portion of it that is untenable, that they can't live with, that they would like to see changed, and that maybe will prevent the entire thing from being passed. Perhaps if it was broken down into smaller bites, it would be a lot easier to win on some of these points where he'd like to win.
Laura?
We haven't done tax reform since the 80s, and that's because there's nothing that brings the alligators out of the swamp like talking about tax cuts and creating winners and losers. This is a massive tax cut right now, what we know about it, a massive tax cut for the wealthiest in America, and also a massive tax cut for corporations. The other thing that we've learned, and even Reagan economists know, is that tax cuts don't pay for themselves. So right now the plan on the table would create trillions of dollars in deficit spending, and really no evidence that economic growth would could make up for that. So I'm worried about the economy generally if you start making tax cuts that you don't pay for. And if you want to talk about paying for them, you have to look at the two biggest pots of money that the federal government spends. And one of those is our social safety net, for our Medicare for our old folks, and our Social Security, and the other is military spending, two holy grails that people don't want to touch.
Okay, it's time for final thoughts, and you get to pick whatever you want. You want to do health care, the tax plan, the plane issues. You want to talk about the kneeling on the NFL. 30 seconds on the clock for Laura. You go first. Ready,
Well,
set?
Raul, you know I can't pass up talking about kneeling in the NFL. I think we saw that some unity among NFL players today, and I just want to say that it was pretty impressive, the number of people that were taking a knee in support of Colin Kaepernick, who was derided. And there's a long history in sports of public statements and really confronting social ills. And so I really am proud to see the players taking this on. It's incredibly bold in the face of powerful owners and in face of the president himself. So I hope that it continues.
Okay. Very good. That was almost at zero. There's your buzzer. Okay,
There it
Wendy,
is.
you ready? Here's your 30 seconds. Go.
Okay, in the name of patriotism, let me take it in a little bit of a different direction, and that's Puerto Rico. We've been hearing a lot about their supplies are there, but they can't get into the people that need them. Thousands of people standing in line for a bag of ice. Maybe what we can do with our patriotism is band together to decide how we can best help those people in Puerto Rico, how we can either, whether it's money or labor or whatever it is we can do, that would be one of the best ways we can band together as Americans to help our fellow citizens.
All right, well said. Wendy, Laura, thank you both very much. Oh, early buzzer for okay. Have a wonderful weekend, ladies. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
Thanks, Raul.
you.
Thanks, Shelley.
All right, still ahead here on Fox 5, fans lining up to get their hands on the